When did you find out your parents were super rich? Depends on your definition of super rich. But if I had to wager, I suspect my dad is sitting on 8 figures. I didn't really catch on to that until probably my 20s when my mum mentioned in passing how much store they were sitting on one day, as neither of my parents ever lived like they had a lot of money. Ironically, I expect that's how they wound up with so much. They grew up poor, got high-paying jobs, but never stopped pinching pennies. After my mother passed, my father passed over 20 years before her, my wife, and I were going through the records she'd left. I found one of my father's later paychecks before he retired. I was making more after 3 years on the job than he was making at the end of his career. I didn't do mental processes at the time, but I believe those two things were about the same time too. Not super rich, but pretty rich. When I was young, probably around 7 years, my dad heard me playing on my sister's cheap piano keyboard. My dad thought I had talent at the piano, so he bought me an entire piano and piano lessons OFC. It wasn't until I was older and learned how much pianos cost that I realized how crazy that is. I think I was like 17 when I realized that. My parents just told us, super snooty snobs who can't go 5 minutes without throwing their wealth in someone's face. Wasn't hard to figure out, lol. Not to mention we never had to leave the property for schooling until college. They just hired teachers and staff and lets us for months on end. Gotta love it. How we define super rich. But the day my father wrote a $55,000 check to buy a yearling quarter horse solely because 12-year-old me said he would be a winner in the track was, in retrospect, an eye-opener. In fairness to me, that horse held the world record for 870 yards for 2 years. I was 5 when I realized my mum could just plop down the money she was carrying on her and buy virtually any kind of candy at the supermarket. Kit Kat Mounds, an entire handful of Jolly Ranchers, no problem. Wait, your parents are rich? My parents do pretty well. But it's always been clear it's their money, and not mine, so I've built my own fortune. I can proudly say my 4-digit club membership is all me. I will always remember the day I found out my parents had stupid money. I was like 12 and I tagged along with my father to go see his accountant. I learned a lot that day, haha. This is a pretty subjective question. While my family didn't seem to have the money for me to play sports or travel, we always had a roof over our heads and food on the table. When my dad's younger brother died, he sat my brother and I down and showed us his stock portfolio and told us where to find the notebook he keeps all his passwords. Well, I realized we were rich when the 2008 recession had absolutely no effect on us. We still have expensive hobbies and went on vacations. My grandpa, when his obituary was published, also, and I looked up his house on Zillow when it got sold. It's in LA, and he bought it in 1963. There are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and half the comment section in this thread were going to be never. They're poor. At their 25th wedding anniversary, when most of the town showed up to celebrate with them, financially, just getting by. FAFSA statements. I'm semi-estranged from them now, and paid for my own education, so it was a bit of a disadvantage. When I found out my dad owning like 3 different buildings and being the landlord plus, he invests a lot. My dad was drinking one time and let it slip that he had kidnapping insurance for all the kids. My dad left his computer signed in to a trading account and I saw how much money he had in it. My grandfather was. I found out the second I stepped onto his plane for the first time. Never, unfortunately. They appear to be experts at hiding it and diversionary tactics. My parents never told me. I had to learn we were rich from the household staff. I dated a girl whose parents had a $5 million home. We didn't work out. The moment grey poupon and polliner whole fruits started showing up at the house, I would hope tomorrow, but they really aren't the sharing type anyway. In the middle of the night, in my dreams, then I woke up to reality. Hopefully tonight at dinner, I could really use the money. Even if they had money, they would say they are broke. When I realized how much Pizza Hut for 5 people cost,